One of the popular criticisms for having measurement vendors do a bunch of different methodologies and allow users and marketers to see different answers for some of the same questions is that the turnover for CMOs in tech is so short that they to survive in their jobs they need to show their impact on revenue, so they buy a tool to validate their existence versus actually informing what is working, what is not working. And so, like, if they buy a unified measurement vendor approach and it introduces this like element of variability, maybe you don't like what the MMM results are showing you. You just tweak this lever here and you give more weight to MTA, and here, boom, now your campaigns and the money that you've advocated for shows things a bit more favorably. How do you think about that versus like being true to what the data is telling you versus allowing your buyers to tweak the levers to justify their existence and their investments?
Yeah. So there's this saying that you could torture the data and it will confess to anything. But with the unified marketing measurement sort of systems, if you torture the data, it will show in the UI, right? So the only way
Mm,
in which you could create a model that agrees with your assumptions or that sort of agrees with your story, all those configurations are there in the UI, open to scrutiny, right? So the assumptions that you have incorporated could be scrutinized by everyone. So it's a very open system that way. And the way I think about this is, so far everything that we discussed, it's we could classify that as the hard problem of attribution, right? So we have been
mhm,
talking about statistics, the technicalities on how to create the model and things like that. But there's a soft problem of attribution, which is that every other business function is becoming more deterministic and more
mhm.
optimized. So your HR function, IT function, product building, supply chain, everything is very deterministic. It's becoming better year on year. But marketing is what is becoming more challenging and more probabilistic. So your business leaders, your CFOs, your CEOs are sitting on a bunch of very deterministic number. There's nothing probabilistic about a loss of $3 million, right? So they're sitting on top of those red numbers, and then the marketing org comes with a lot of uncertainty and a probabilistic interpretation of what's happening. So that's a soft problem, right? So the only way to address that is to be very transparent about the communication, very transparent about how you have arrived at those problems. And the reality of reality is that it's uncertain, right? Right? So, and there's no way in which we can wish that away. This is something we see a lot of marketers coming to terms with. So your MMM numbers will never be as glamorous as your attribution numbers. Especially, it will never be as glamorous as your self-reported attribution numbers,
Mm.
right? Because we are primarily interested in incrementality. But the important thing about these incrementality numbers is they are easily verifiable, right? You could easily prove or disprove that these numbers are wrong by adopting a few techniques. So you could create a forecast. You need not adopt the recommendation. So that's what we recommend all our brands as well, right? When we create our first model, you can use the model to create a forecast. You tell the model that this is what you have planned to invest for next month or next 2 months. The model will create a forecast. See if the forecast is accurate, right? If the model is able to forecast well on what you've already planned for, right, then the model has generalized well on your historical data. Once you have built enough confidence on forecast, then go to the optimization part, which is asking the reverse, right? Which is, I need to reach somewhere, give me the mix. So this approach, there's no one-shot solution. It's not that the first
Mhm.
model you have absolute confidence on the first model, but that we can have a program or a process where over a couple of months you can improve the model, you can build a lot of confidence on the process, right? That's possible.
Very cool. I like how you turned it, the soft or like the people, human problems with attribution and measurement. Like it makes me think of in all the companies that I've worked at, like we never graduated or gravitated towards measurement minimization. We were always obsessed about measurement. And I'm curious to get your take if you think that, you're selling a measurement solution, but do you think that people are too obsessed about measurement? Like, do we really need to focus on measuring every channel, every campaign, every creative, like every piece of content, every email nurture? Like everyone is trying to justify their existence within the marketing team, and it's important to show your impact on metrics and stuff like that. But like from a marketing operations, marketing leadership standpoint, like do we need to obsess about measuring every single thing? Like, do you think teams should focus on significant channels and campaigns, significant sources that like burn real money and can scale when you like add a bunch of money to it and increase the budget? And insignificant in the sense that like, organic or email or direct traffic, like those things are meaningful, but, like, you can't really scale them by adding, 500K next month.
Mm.
Like, how much do you attribute to this idea of, like, should we just measure the stuff that matters? And, like, how do you think about that? Like, what matters in terms of measurement?
Yeah. So I have a slightly different perspective. Perhaps what I would say is there are some major factors, and it's absolutely important that you understand their impact with as much accuracy as possible, right? Because say your 10 percentage of your spend goes to that one particular factor. So it's very important that you're very confident that it's driving you results. So
Mhm.
you should perhaps measure everything, but the rigor that you apply could vary, right? You need not apply the same rigor on some of the newer channels or at a very granular creative level, right? You could have a slightly more relaxed approach towards that. Now the truth is, uh, you can only control what you can measure, right? So if you want to manage something, control for something, then you should have some measurement process for that. For brands which are just starting up, which does not have a lot of spend, you're still in one channel. In those cases, perhaps you could have a very scrappy measurement program in place, and that should solve most of your questions. It has got its own pitfalls as well. The experiment example that I mentioned, right?
Mhm.
So if you introduce a new channel, if the experiment is not properly designed, you will make wrong inference from that. But you could be slightly mindful of these things, and you could perhaps manage everything yourself as well. But once things get complex, right? Once you have more channels, some of which are offline, you have more sales channels, some of which are again not trackable. So when things get to that level, you'll perhaps need a more formal program of measuring things. But to come back to your question, of course, the core function is to drive business value, right? You've got a lot of things to worry about. So you should perhaps uh, not put the same effort of measurement across everything that you're doing. You
Mm.
could prioritize what needs a lot of effort, a lot of focus, right? And what could be done with the quasi-causal approach, and where multi-touch attribution is perhaps still okay-ish to use. You could perhaps balance the bandwidth or balance the rigor accordingly.